The divorce papers hit the mahogany table with a crisp slap that echoed through the law office like a gunshot. I stared at my name, Eulalia Vane, printed in cold, legal typeface next to words like irreconcilable differences and custody arrangement. My hands trembled as I looked up at Graham, my husband of 8 years, sitting across from me with his lawyer. His face was stone. No tears, no anger, just nothing. "You can't be serious," I whispered, my voice cracking. "Graham, we can work this out. We always do." He didn't even look at me. Instead, his attorney, a sharp woman in her 50s, slid another folder across the table. "Mrs. Vane, these are copies of evidence your husband has compiled over the past 6 weeks. Text messages, hotel receipts, office security footage, witness statements." My stomach dropped. 6 weeks. He'd been planning this for 6 weeks while I thought he was just being his usual distant self. "I don't understand," I said, though we all knew I understood perfectly. "Graham, please, look at me." Finally, he raised his eyes. They were the same brown eyes that used to look at me with such love, but now they held something I'd never seen before, complete indifference. "I looked at you for months, Eulalia. I watched you lie to my face every single day. I watched you humiliate me in front of my family. I watched you use our daughter as a prop in your little victim performance." His voice was calm, measured, terrifying. "Now it's your turn to watch." 3 months earlier, I was convinced my marriage was suffocating me. Graham worked 60-hour weeks as an IT consultant for a medical software company, coming home exhausted and distracted. He'd kiss me on the cheek, ask about Ivy's homework, and disappear into his home office until bedtime. We hadn't had a real conversation in months. "He acts like I'm just another piece of furniture," I complained to my sister Anya over coffee at our usual spot downtown. "I could disappear tomorrow, and he probably wouldn't notice until the bills stopped getting paid." Anya stirred her latte thoughtfully. "Have you tried talking to him? Like, really talking? What's the point? He's either working or thinking about work. When was the last time he asked about my day? My feelings? Anything?" I felt tears welling up, the familiar ache of loneliness settling in my chest. "I'm 32 years old, Anya. I shouldn't feel invisible in my own marriage." My best friend Mia leaned forward from across the table. "You deserve better, Eula. You're beautiful, smart, funny. If Graham can't see what he has, maybe it's time to remind him what he could lose." "What do you mean?" "I mean, stop being so available. Stop waiting around for him to notice you. Live your life. Have some fun." That evening, I tried one more time. Graham was in his office, 3 monitors glowing as he typed code I couldn't begin to understand. I knocked on the doorframe. "Hey, I was thinking maybe we could watch a movie tonight. Ivy's at your parents' house, so we could actually talk for once." He didn't look up from his screen. "Can't tonight. I'm debugging this authentication module and the client wants it fixed by tomorrow morning." "It's Friday night, Graham. Software doesn't care what day it is." He finally glanced at me, but his eyes were already drifting back to his work. "Maybe tomorrow." We both knew tomorrow wouldn't happen either. There would be another crisis, another urgent deadline, another reason why his job was more important than his wife. I went to bed alone, again, staring at the ceiling while Graham's keyboard clicked away downstairs. My phone buzzed with a text from Mia. "How'd it go?" "Same as always," I typed back. "I'm starting to think I married a computer instead of a man." "You know what you need? A distraction, something to make you feel alive again." I stared at her message for a long time before responding. "Like what?" "Like remembering what it feels like to be desired." The next Monday at work, I found myself paying more attention to my appearance than I had in years. I worked as an administrative assistant at Morrison & Associates, a mid-sized consulting firm downtown. The work was routine, but the office had been buzzing lately with news of a new project manager. Marcello Ford, 29, recently transferred from the Chicago branch. I first saw him in the break room, tall and lean with dark hair and the kind of confident smile that made you feel like you were the only person in the room. He was making coffee when I walked in. "You must be Eulalia," he said, extending his hand. "I'm Marcello. I've heard you're the one who actually keeps this place running." His handshake lingered just a moment too long, and I felt a flutter in my stomach I hadn't experienced in years. "Guilty as charged," I said, surprised by how flirtatious my voice sounded. "Welcome to the chaos. I have a feeling I'm going to like it here." Over the next few weeks, Marcello and I found excuses to interact. He'd stop by my desk to ask about office procedures, always with that disarming smile. He'd compliment my outfits, ask about my weekend plans, and actually listen to my answers, something Graham hadn't done in months. "Your husband's a lucky man," he said one afternoon, leaning against my cubicle wall. "Sometimes I wonder if he knows that," I replied before I could stop myself. Marcello's expression grew serious. His loss would be someone else's gain. That night, I mentioned Marcello to Graham over dinner. "There's a new project manager at work. Really nice guy, very professional." Graham grunted acknowledgement while scrolling through his phone. "That's good. He's from Chicago, single. Says he's still getting used to the city." Another grunt. "I was thinking maybe we could invite him over for dinner sometime. You know, be neighborly." Finally, Graham looked up. "Sure, whatever you think is best." Whatever I thought was best. He couldn't even be bothered to have an opinion about a stranger coming into our home. The next day, Marcello asked if I wanted to grab coffee after work. "Just to talk," he said. "You seem like you have interesting stories." I should have said no. I should have mentioned my husband, my daughter, my wedding vows. Instead, I heard myself saying, "I'd like that." We went to a small cafe 3 blocks from the office. For 2 hours, Marcello asked about my life, my dreams, my thoughts on everything from books to travel to what made me laugh. He remembered details from previous conversations and built on them. He made me feel fascinating. "I should probably head home," I finally said, glancing at my phone. It was almost 7. "Of course. Thank you for this. I haven't had a conversation this good since I moved here." "Me neither," I admitted, "and I've lived here my whole life." He walked me to my car, and as I fumbled with my keys, my phone buzzed with a text from Graham. "Working late again. Don't wait up." I stared at the message, feeling a familiar stab of abandonment. "Everything okay?" Marcello asked. "My husband. He's always working." "That's a shame. If I had someone like you waiting at home, I'd never want to be anywhere else." I looked up at him, and for a moment the world felt full of possibilities I'd forgotten existed. That night, Graham came home after midnight. I pretended to be asleep as he quietly got ready for bed, but I was wide awake, thinking about brown eyes that actually saw me and a voice that made me feel like I mattered. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Thanks for the coffee." "Sweet dreams, Eulalia." I deleted the message immediately, but the damage was done. I'd crossed a line and we both knew it. The next few weeks blurred together in a haze of stolen moments and secret messages. Marcello and I developed a routine of working dinners and coffee meetings that had nothing to do with Morrison and Associates. He was everything Graham wasn't: attentive, romantic, present. When Marcello looked at me, I felt like the most important person in the world. "You're glowing lately," Anya observed during one of our sister lunches. "New skincare routine?" I blushed, picking at my salad. "Just trying to take better care of myself." "Good for you. How are things with Graham?" "The same. He's been putting in even more hours lately. Some big project for a hospital system." I tried to sound disappointed, but the truth was, Graham's absence made everything easier. "That's rough. You need to make time for each other, or you'll just become roommates." If she only knew we'd been roommates for months already. That afternoon, Marcello stopped by my desk with a proposal that made my heart race. "There's a new Italian place downtown. I was thinking of checking it out tonight, but I hate eating alone. Any interest in being my dining companion? I glanced around the office, making sure no one was listening. I can't. It's a school night, and my daughter... Of course, family first. I respect that. He started to walk away, then turned back. Rain check? I nodded, already planning how to make it happen. That evening, I brought up the idea casually with Graham. Ivy wants to have a sleepover at your parents' house this weekend. Something about helping your mom with her garden. Graham looked up from his laptop. That's fine. I'll probably use the time to catch up on some documentation anyway. Perfect. He'd given me the opening without even realizing it. Friday night, I told Graham I was having dinner with Mia to celebrate her promotion. Not technically a lie. Mia had gotten promoted just 3 months ago. Have fun, he said absently, already turning back to his screens. I spent an hour getting ready, choosing a black dress I hadn't worn since our anniversary 2 years ago. When I looked in the mirror, I saw someone I'd almost forgotten. A woman worth pursuing. Marcello was waiting at the restaurant, and his face lit up when he saw me. You look absolutely stunning. Thank you. I felt beautiful for the first time in months. Dinner was magical. We talked about everything and nothing, sharing stories and laughing like old friends. Marcello told me about his divorce 2 years earlier, how he'd thrown himself into work to avoid dealing with the loneliness. What about you? He asked over dessert. Are you happy? The question hung in the air between us. I could have lied, could have said everything was fine, could have still saved my marriage. Instead, I told him the truth. I can't remember the last time I felt truly happy. Graham and we're like ships passing in the night. He loves his work more than he's ever loved me. Marcello reached across the table and covered my hand with his. That's his loss. You're an incredible woman, Eulalia. You deserve someone who sees that. The drive back to my car was quiet, charged with unspoken possibilities. When we reached my Honda, Marcello walked me to the driver's side. I had an amazing time tonight, he said softly. Me too. We stood there for a moment, and I knew what was going to happen before it did. He leaned in slowly, giving me every opportunity to stop him. I didn't. The kiss was gentle at first, then deeper as I responded. It had been so long since someone had kissed me like I was precious, like I was desired. When we finally broke apart, I was breathless. I should go, I whispered. I know. But neither of us moved. My phone buzzed with a text from Graham. Still out. Hope you're having fun. The guilt hit me like a physical blow. I was a wife, a mother, standing in a parking lot kissing another man, while my husband worked late to provide for our family. I have to go, I said, more firmly this time. Marcello stepped back. I understand. But Eulalia... This isn't over. We both know that. I drove home in silence, my lips still tingling from his kiss. Graham's car was in the driveway, which meant he'd actually finished work at a reasonable hour for once. Of course, tonight of all nights. I found him in the kitchen, making a late dinner. Hey, he said, glancing up. How was dinner with Mia? Good. She's excited about the new position. The lie came so easily it scared me. That's great. I'm glad you got out of the house. He studied my face. You look nice. Is that dress new? No, just something I haven't worn in a while. He nodded and went back to his sandwich. If he noticed my flushed cheeks or the fact that I couldn't quite meet his eyes, he didn't say anything. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling while Graham slept beside me. My phone was on the nightstand, and I kept thinking about Marcello's number in my contacts. Finally, at 2 a.m., I gave in and sent a text. Thank you for tonight. I can't stop thinking about it. His response came immediately. Neither can I. Sweet dreams. Beautiful. I deleted both messages and tried to sleep, but my mind was racing. I'd crossed a line I couldn't uncross, and the worst part was how good it felt. The next morning, Graham was already gone when I woke up. He'd left a note on the kitchen counter. Emergency at the data center. Might be late tonight. Sorry. Gee. I crumpled the note and threw it away. Sorry. He was always sorry, but never sorry enough to change anything. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcello. Good morning. Any chance you're free for coffee today? I stared at the message for a long time before responding. Ivy's at her grandparents' until tomorrow. I could do lunch. Perfect. I know just the place. Sunday dinner at Graham's parents' house had been a monthly tradition for years, but lately, these gatherings felt like performance art. I'd sit at Teresa's perfectly set dining room table, playing the role of the dutiful wife, while secretly counting the minutes until I could check my phone for messages from Marcello. Eulalia, you look lovely today, Teresa said as she passed the roast beef. Doesn't she, Graham? Graham glanced up from his plate. Yes, very nice. Very nice, like I was a piece of furniture he'd just noticed. Thank you, Therese. I've been trying to take better care of myself lately. I shot a meaningful look at Graham. Someone has to make an effort around here. Peter, Graham's father, raised an eyebrow. Everything all right with you two? Oh, we're fine, I said with a laugh that sounded bitter even to my own ears. Aren't we, honey? When we actually see each other, that is. Graham's jaw tightened. I've been busy with work. You're always busy with work. Sometimes I wonder if you remember you have a family. The table went quiet. Ivy, who'd been chattering about her school play, looked between her parents with worried eyes. Daddy works hard so we can have nice things, she said softly. Of course he does, sweetheart, I said, immediately regretting my outburst. Mommy's just being silly. But the damage was done. Therese spent the rest of dinner shooting disapproving looks at Graham, while Peter tried to lighten the mood with stories about his golf game. I felt a twisted satisfaction at making Graham squirm, even as I knew I was being unfair. After dinner, while Graham helped his father with something in the garage, Therese cornered me in the kitchen. Is everything really okay, dear? You seem tense lately. It's just hard sometimes, I said, letting my voice crack slightly. Graham's so focused on his career. I feel like I'm raising Ivy alone most of the time. Teresa's expression softened. Men can be thoughtless about these things. They think providing is enough, but women need emotional connection too. I'll talk to him. Oh no, please don't. I don't want to cause problems. Nonsense. A marriage takes work from both people. Graham needs to remember that. I felt a stab of guilt at manipulating his mother, but it was quickly overwhelmed by vindication. Finally, someone was seeing what I'd been dealing with. On the drive home, Graham was unusually quiet. Finally, as we pulled into our driveway, he spoke. What was that about tonight? What was what about? You know what? Embarrassing me in front of my parents. I wasn't embarrassing you. I was being honest about our marriage. Our marriage is fine, Eulalia. We're going through a busy period, but that's life. You don't need to air our dirty laundry at family dinner. Our marriage is not fine. The words exploded out of me. When's the last time we had a real conversation? When's the last time you asked about my day, my feelings, anything that matters to me? I ask about your day. No, you ask if anything important happened, which is code for please say no so I can go back to my computer. Graham turned off the engine and sat back in his seat. What do you want from me, Eula? I'm working 60-hour weeks to keep us afloat. The mortgage, Ivy's school, your car payment, none of that pays itself. I want my husband back. I want to feel like I matter to you. You do matter to me. You and Ivy are everything to me. Then act like it. We sat in silence for a moment, and I thought maybe we were finally going to have the conversation we'd been avoiding for months. Then Graham's phone buzzed with an alert. The server's down, he said, already reaching for the door handle. I need to log in and see what's happening. And just like that, he was gone again, disappearing into his office while I got Ivy ready for bed alone. That night, I texted Marcello. I can't keep pretending everything's fine. I need to see you. His response was immediate. Tomorrow, lunch. I know a place outside the city where we can talk. I knew it was more than talking, and I didn't care anymore. The restaurant was a small bistro 30 minutes outside town, intimate and dimly lit despite the afternoon hour. Marcello was waiting in a corner booth, and when he saw me, his face lit up with genuine pleasure. "You came," he said, standing to kiss my cheek. I almost didn't. "But you did. That's what matters." We ordered wine with lunch, something I never did on weekdays. The alcohol loosened my tongue, and I found myself telling him everything, about the dinner at Graham's parents', about feeling invisible in my own home, about wondering if my marriage had been a mistake. "You're not happy," Marcello said simply. "No, I'm not. Life's too short to be miserable, Eulalia. You're a beautiful, intelligent woman with so much to offer. Don't waste it on someone who doesn't appreciate what he has." When he reached for my hand across the table, I didn't pull away. When he suggested we get a room at the hotel next door, I nodded. The next 2 hours were everything my marriage wasn't: passionate, attentive, consuming. Marcello made me feel desired in ways I'd forgotten were possible. Afterward, as we lay tangled in hotel sheets, I felt more alive than I had in years. "I should go," I said eventually, but I made no move to leave. "Not yet," he murmured against my neck. "Just a few more minutes." Those few more minutes turned into another hour. By the time I got home, it was almost 6 o'clock. Graham was in the kitchen, starting dinner. "There you are," he said without looking up. "How was work?" "Fine. Busy day." "Good. I picked up Ivy from school. She's upstairs doing homework." "Thank you." He nodded, still focused on chopping vegetables. If he noticed that I'd been gone for 3 hours longer than usual, or that I couldn't quite meet his eyes, he didn't mention it. That night at dinner, Ivy chatted about her day while Graham and I sat in our usual silence. I found myself studying my husband's face, looking for signs of suspicion or hurt, but he seemed as oblivious as ever. "Daddy, are you and Mummy fighting?" Ivy asked suddenly. "No, sweetheart," Graham said. "Why would you think that? You don't talk to each other anymore. And Mummy seems sad." I felt a stab of guilt. "Mummy's not sad, baby, just tired." "Maybe we could do something fun this weekend. All 3 of us," Ivy suggested hopefully. "That sounds great," Graham said, looking at me expectantly. "Sure," I agreed, even as I was mentally calculating when I could see Marcello again. That night, my phone buzzed with a text. "Can't stop thinking about this afternoon. When can I see you again?" I stared at the message for a long time before responding. "Soon." I was in too deep to stop now, and the worst part was I didn't want to. 3 weeks into my affair with Marcello, I started noticing changes in Graham's behavior. Subtle things at first. He'd glance up when I came home from my extended work meetings, ask casual questions about my day that felt more pointed than usual. But he never directly confronted me, never demanded explanations. He just watched. "You're being paranoid," Mia said when I mentioned it over coffee. "Guilty conscience, maybe." "I don't have anything to feel guilty about," I lied. "My marriage was over long before Marcello came along." "Is it serious with him?" I hesitated. The truth was, I wasn't sure what Marcello and I were doing. He was affectionate during our stolen afternoons, but he'd never talked about the future or leaving our respective situations. He was divorced and free. I was the one with complications. "It's serious enough," I said finally. What I didn't tell Mia was that Marcello had been pulling back lately. Our lunch dates were shorter, his texts less frequent. When I'd suggested meeting over the weekend, he'd claimed he had plans with friends from Chicago. "I need to be careful," he'd said. "Office relationships can get complicated, and I don't want to jeopardize my position here." "This isn't just an office relationship," I'd protested. "I know, but we have to be smart about this." Smart, as if there was anything smart about what we were doing. That Friday night, Graham surprised me by suggesting we go out to dinner, just the 2 of us, while Ivy stayed with his parents. "When's the last time we had a real date?" he asked, and I couldn't remember. We went to Romano's, the Italian restaurant where we'd had our first anniversary dinner. Graham seemed different, more present, more attentive. He asked about my job, my sister, things he hadn't shown interest in for months. "You seem happier lately," he observed over dessert. My heart skipped. "Do I? More energetic. It's nice to see." I forced a smile. "I've been trying to focus on the positive." "That's good. I know I haven't been the most attentive husband lately. Work's been crazy, but that's not an excuse. I want to do better." The irony was crushing. Here was Graham, finally offering me the attention I'd been craving, and all I could think about was Marcello's hands on my skin. "We should probably head home," I said, suddenly unable to bear his earnest brown eyes. "Of course." The drive home was quiet, but it felt different from our usual silences. Graham kept glancing at me, and I had the unsettling feeling he was trying to solve a puzzle. That night, he made love to me for the first time in months. He was gentle, attentive, everything a wife should want. But I lay there thinking about someone else, feeling like the worst person in the world. Afterward, as Graham slept beside me, I slipped out to check my phone. No messages from Marcello. I typed and deleted a dozen texts before finally sending, "Missing you." He didn't respond until the next morning. "Busy weekend. Talk Monday." Monday came and went without a word. Tuesday, I finally cornered him in the break room. "Is everything okay?" I asked, trying to keep my voice casual. "Of course, just swamped with this new project." He didn't meet my eyes as he poured his coffee. "I was thinking we could grab lunch today." "Can't. Meeting with the Chicago team via video conference." "What about later this week?" "Let me check my schedule and get back to you." But he didn't get back to me. For the rest of the week, Marcello was polite but distant, treating me like any other colleague. I felt like I was going crazy, analyzing every interaction for hidden meaning. Meanwhile, Graham continued his campaign of renewed attention. He brought me flowers on Wednesday, suggested a weekend getaway on Thursday, actually put his laptop away during dinner on Friday. It was everything I'd claimed to want, but it felt too late. "He's trying," Anya pointed out when I complained about Graham's sudden transformation. "Isn't this what you wanted?" "It's too little, too late," I said, but even as I said it, I wasn't sure I believed it. The truth was, I was addicted to the drama, to the intensity of feeling wanted by someone new. Graham's steady, reliable love felt boring compared to the thrill of stolen moments and secret messages. That weekend, while Graham took Ivy to her soccer game, I drove to Marcello's apartment complex. I'd never been there before, but I'd memorized the address from his personnel file. I sat in my car for an hour, hoping to catch a glimpse of him, feeling like a stalker. Finally, he emerged with a woman I didn't recognize. Tall, blonde, laughing at something he'd said. They got into his car together, and I watched them drive away, feeling like I'd been punched in the stomach. I drove home in a daze, barely registering the traffic around me. Graham and Ivy were back from the game, and Ivy was excitedly recounting her goals while Graham made lunch. "Mommy," she called when she saw me. "I scored twice. Did you see Daddy's video?" "That's wonderful, sweetheart," I said, trying to focus on her bright, happy face instead of the image of Marcello with another woman. "Are you okay?" Graham asked, studying my expression. "You look pale." "Just a headache. I think I'll lie down for a while." I escaped to our bedroom and closed the door, finally allowing the tears to come. What had I done? I'd risked everything for a man who was already moving on to his next conquest. My phone buzzed with a text from my sister. "How are things going with your situation?" I stared at the message, realizing I'd never explicitly told Anya about Marcello, but she'd clearly figured it out. My sister had always been perceptive. "It's complicated," I typed back. "Want to talk about it?" "Not yet." "Okay, but Eula, be careful. You have a good life. Don't throw it away for something that might not be real." Too late, I thought. I'd already thrown it away. The question now was whether there was anything left to salvage. That night, Graham found me crying in the bathroom. "Hey," he said softly, kneeling beside the tub where I sat. What's wrong? I looked at my husband, really looked at him, for the first time in months. His face was full of concern, love, confusion. He was a good man who worked hard for his family and deserved better than a wife who'd betrayed him. I think I'm having a midlife crisis, I said, which was as close to the truth as I could manage. You're 32. A quarter-life crisis, then? He smiled sadly. Talk to me. What's going on? For a moment, I considered telling him everything, confessing, apologizing, begging for forgiveness. But then my phone buzzed with a text, and I instinctively reached for it. Graham's expression changed. Who's texting you at 11 o'clock at night? Probably Mia. She's having issues with her boyfriend. Can I see? The question hung in the air between us. It was a reasonable request. Spouses should be able to look at each other's phones. But my entire body went cold. Why would you want to see Mia's relationship drama? I don't, I just... He paused, and I could see him choosing his words carefully. I feel like we're drifting apart, and I'm trying to understand why. We're fine, Graham. Just tired. He nodded, but I could see the doubt in his eyes. Okay, but if something's wrong, you'll tell me, right? Of course. Another lie to add to the growing pile. As I watched him get ready for bed, I realized I'd crossed another line, not just adultery, but the complete erosion of trust between us. The text had been from Marcello. We need to talk, tomorrow after work. I deleted it immediately, but the damage was done. Graham had seen me reach for my phone, seen my panic when he'd asked to look at it. He was too smart not to put the pieces together eventually. I was running out of time, and I still had no idea what I wanted to save. The meeting Marcello had requested took place in the parking garage after work on a grey Tuesday evening. He was leaning against his BMW when I found him, and his expression was serious in a way that made my stomach clench. We need to end this, he said without preamble. What? The word came out as a whisper. This thing between us, it's gotten too complicated, and I can't afford complications right now. I don't understand. Last week you said... Last week was last week. Look, Eulalia, you're a beautiful woman, and I've enjoyed our time together, but you're married. You have a kid. I'm not looking to be anyone's home wrecker. You're not wrecking anything. My marriage was already broken. Then fix it or leave it. But I can't be your escape anymore. I felt like he'd slapped me. Is this about the woman I saw you with? The blonde? His eyebrows rose. You were watching my apartment. Heat flooded my cheeks. I was in the neighborhood. Eulalia, listen to yourself. This is exactly what I'm talking about. You're getting too attached, too invested. I never promised you anything beyond what we had. What we had? Past tense? Yes, past tense. His voice was gentle but firm. I'm sorry if you thought it was something more, but I was always clear about my situation. Had he been clear? Looking back, I realized he'd never talked about leaving town together, never mentioned love, never made any promises about the future. I'd built an entire fantasy around stolen afternoons in hotel rooms. So that's it? You're just done with me? I'm done with the drama. You're a married woman having an affair, and I'm an idiot for letting it go on this long. Your husband seems like a decent guy, and your daughter doesn't deserve to have her family blown up because her mother is bored. Don't you dare judge me. You don't know anything about my marriage. I know enough. I know you complain about your husband constantly, but you've never actually left him. I know you use your kid as an excuse when it's convenient and ignore her when it's not. I know you're looking for someone else to fix your problems instead of fixing them yourself. Each word hit like a physical blow. That's not fair. Maybe not, but it's true. He pushed off from his car. I'm sorry, Eulalia. I really am. But this ends now. I watched him drive away, feeling like my entire world was collapsing. The worst part was knowing he was right. I had been using him as an escape, building him up as the solution to all my problems, while refusing to face the real issues in my life. The drive home was a blur of tears and self-recrimination. I'd thrown away 8 years of marriage for a man who saw me as nothing more than a convenient distraction. I'd risked my daughter's stability, my family's respect, and my own integrity for someone who could walk away without a second thought. Graham's car was in the driveway when I got home, which was unusual for a Tuesday evening. I found him in the kitchen with Ivy, helping her with a science project about solar systems. "Mommy," Ivy called when she saw me. "Daddy's helping me make Saturn's rings out of cardboard." "That's wonderful, sweetheart," I managed, trying to hide my red eyes. Graham looked up from the craft supplies. "You're late tonight." "Traffic was terrible." He went back to cutting cardboard, but I could feel his attention on me like a weight. After Ivy went to bed, I found Graham in his office, but instead of working, he was sitting in his chair staring at the wall. "Everything okay?" I asked from the doorway. "I could ask you the same question." "What do you mean?" He turned to face me, and his expression was unreadable. "Eula, I know we've been having problems, but I thought we were working on them. These past few weeks I've been trying to be more present, more attentive, but you seem more distant than ever." "I'm just tired." "Are you? Or is there something else going on?" The question hung in the air between us. This was my chance to come clean, to confess everything, and beg for forgiveness. But the words stuck in my throat. Like what? "I don't know, you tell me." We stared at each other for a long moment, and I could see the pain in his eyes. He knew, maybe not the details, but he knew something was wrong. "I think I need some space," I said finally, "to figure things out." "Space from what? From me? From our marriage?" "From everything. I feel like I'm suffocating, Graham, like I've lost myself somewhere along the way." "So find yourself, but do it here, with your family. Don't run away from us." "I'm not running away." "Aren't you?" That night we slept in the same bed, but might as well have been on different continents. Graham lay on his side, facing away from me, and I could tell from his breathing that he wasn't asleep. The next morning, I called in sick to work. I couldn't face seeing Marcello, couldn't pretend everything was normal when my entire world felt like it was crumbling. Instead, I drove aimlessly around the city, trying to figure out what I wanted. My phone rang around noon. It was Anya. "Mia called me," she said without preamble. "She's worried about you, says you've been acting strange lately." "I'm fine." "No, you're not, and I think I know why." Her voice was gentle but firm. "Eula, please tell me you're not doing something stupid." I pulled over to the side of the road, suddenly unable to see through my tears. "I think I already did." "Oh, honey, how bad is it?" "Bad. Really bad." "Do you want to talk about it?" So I told her everything, about feeling invisible in my marriage, about Marcello, about the affair, about how it had ended. Anya listened without judgment, occasionally making sympathetic noises. "What do I do now?" I asked when I'd finished. "You tell Graham the truth." "I can't. It would destroy him." "It's going to destroy him anyway if he finds out another way. And Eula, he's going to find out. Men aren't as oblivious as we think they are." "What if he leaves me?" "What if he does? You've been complaining about your marriage for months. Maybe this is your chance to figure out what you really want." "I want my family." "Then fight for it, but you can't fight for something while you're lying about it." That afternoon, I went home determined to confess everything to Graham. But when I walked into the house, I found him sitting at the kitchen table with a manila folder in front of him. "We need to talk," he said quietly. My blood turned to ice. "About what?" "About where you really were last Tuesday when you said you were stuck in traffic." He opened the folder and pulled out a photograph. It was me, walking into the downtown hotel with Marcello. The timestamp showed it was taken 3 weeks ago. "Graham, I can explain." "Can you?" "Because I've been trying to explain it to myself for weeks, and I can't come up with any innocent reason why my wife would be checking into a hotel with another man in the middle of the afternoon." I sank into the chair across from him, feeling like I was going to be sick. "How did you—" "It doesn't matter how. What matters is that you've been lying to me for months. To my face, to my family, to our daughter. It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. You're having an affair. The words hung in the air between us like a bomb that had finally detonated. There was no going back now, no more lies or excuses. Yes, I whispered. Graham closed his eyes and took a deep breath. When he opened them again, they were filled with a pain so deep it took my breath away. How long? 2 months. Is it over? Yes, as of yesterday. Did he end it, or did you? I wanted to lie, to salvage some shred of dignity, but I was done with lies. He did. Graham nodded slowly. So, you would have kept going if he hadn't stopped it? I don't know. Maybe. I was confused, Graham. I felt so alone in our marriage, so invisible. So you decided to humiliate me instead of talking to me about it. I tried to talk to you. You were always working, always distracted. So this is my fault. No, yes, I don't know. I was crying now, ugly sobs that shook my whole body. I made a mistake, a terrible mistake. But I felt like you didn't see me anymore, like I didn't matter to you. You're my wife. Of course you matter to me. Then why didn't it feel that way? Graham stood up and walked to the window, his back to me. I don't know, Eula. Maybe I did take you for granted. Maybe I was too focused on work, but instead of fighting for our marriage, you decided to blow it up. I want to fix this. I want to save us. He turned around, and his face was stone. There is no us anymore. You made sure of that. Don't say that. We can get counseling. We can work through this. Can we? Because right now I can't even look at you without seeing him touching you. The words hit me like physical blows. Graham, please. I need you to leave. What? Tonight. Pack a bag and go stay with your sister or a friend. I need time to think, and I can't do that with you here. What about Ivy? I'll explain to Ivy that Mommy needs some space, which is what you said you wanted, right? I wanted to argue, to beg, to promise I'd do anything to make this right, but the look in his eyes told me it was too late for promises. That night, I packed a suitcase while Graham put Ivy to bed. I could hear them talking through the walls, his voice gentle and reassuring, hers confused and worried. I was destroying my daughter's sense of security along with everything else. As I loaded my car, Graham came out to the driveway. For what it's worth, I said, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. I know you are, but sorry doesn't undo what you did. What happens now? I don't know. I need to talk to a lawyer, figure out what my options are. A lawyer? The word hit me like a slap. You broke our marriage, Eulalia. You don't get to control how I respond to that. I drove to Anya's house in a daze, my entire world reduced to the glow of taillights and the sound of my own breathing. I'd wanted attention, wanted to feel desired and important. Instead, I'd lost everything that actually mattered. And the worst part was, I had no one to blame but myself.